Howdy, swingers. Thanks for joining. Charlie Bolak here, live at Swing Away Golf Club. We've got a wonderful show coming up for you today. We're going to talk about the best way to utilize your golf pro. We're going to talk about when to actually draw the line and start parenting your young kids. And my favorite topic on the business, how to conduct post-transaction follow-up. All right. So where do we start the post-transaction sale? So getting right on into our business topic here. This one was near and dear to my heart because I felt like just not enough people did it. After the sale, especially a bigger deal or closing a deal, and not necessarily a sale. In fact, I remember one particular time in my career where a sale was a bad thing, and just to just touch that one real quick. It was so we did a lot of bidded projects. Some municipalities would, put out a bid for uh, big sewer replacement jobs, and we particularly would go in and bid the sewer bypass sections. And this particular one was a remove and replace, meaning they had to plug the line, bypass it, go in, cut out the old pipe, lay in new pipe. Uh, Meanwhile, the whole time, pumping the sewer around, so it's great for me. Uh, but after that, when my contractor got it, he won the bid. I was very excited. Called me about 2 weeks later and wanted to buy everything. So, you know, great on the front end for 1 month, big paycheck. But what could have been a 7, 8 month rental, great long term revenue deal turned into a sale, and that's completely fine because ultimately I would suspect that the contractor made more money. He's got good fleet, that job paid for it. Uh, it was great, but I learned a lesson on that one as well. On the post transaction follow up is, when you do these larger deals, it kind of falls on the rep sometimes to set up that support network, on the back end, so that the customer has a great experience, a great first job with those pumps. You might have to work a little bit more, but next time he wins a big project, maybe he looks back and says, "Hey, I tell you what, they serviced my owned pump so good, they're going to be on another project. Why don't I just go ahead and bid this with their rentals? And that way I don't have to buy more pumps that if everything slows down, have to sit." So, we really put together a package for him to where we're there when they needed help, but having to go above and beyond for customer owned fleet, a little bit outside of the particular rental house model because we stay busy enough supporting our own fleet. But when I was able to go back to the branch and pitch, hey, this is good long term for the branch because we're going to get more and more revenue out of this customer. Look past the fact of maybe we're shooting to break even on the service of this deal. I'm sure you guys made a lot on the revenue of the sale. I know I did. So let's take care of the deal all the way through. And again, this particular customer has turned out to be a customer for life. And that's somewhat off topic of the post transaction sale, but it would fall into the category more of post transaction support. But again, from my perspective, anyway, that a certain amount of that falls on the sales rep, at least to organize it back at the branch. And that's just the nature of the beast. That's what separates the best from the rest of the pack. The ones that do that and that are conscious of the long term relationship are ultimately going to have a more satisfactory and satisfying career than the guys that are out chasing specific deals, never think past a specific deal. You know, two philosophies, but I would argue two very different outcomes if you track it through the span of a career. All right, so let's see. Standards, yeah, when you allow, what you encourage, and what you reinforce. That's correct. Post transaction etiquette. Let's see. Trust is built. Yeah, I agree with that. Repeat business, referrals. We've already said that. Uh, yeah, that's right. I mean, so there's two things you can do at the close of a transaction. You can disappear completely. You can have just the right amount, or you can overdo it and become annoying. So I guess there's three things I said too, uh, and neither one of the two that you're not supposed to do build anything long term. But how do you know where that sweet spot is? You know, it's a feel thing more than anything. It's reading people. If I call my customer 6 times and he doesn't answer, well, probably don't want to try that seventh. You're probably, when he eventually does answer, you can say, "What the hell is so important? Why? It's not a good look for you. It looks a little bit desperate, and it's kind of tipping your hand, right? You're saying, "Hey, I need more sales. I need more sales." When I need more sales, I'm willing to make more deals. When I'm willing to make more deals, customer gets a better deal. So customer, you might get some immediate response, but ultimately, you're lowering the value of what you can bring, quote unquote, at market. You know, because you're not positioning yourself right, right? I mean, there needs to be a certain amount of, hey, I'm pretty busy too, right? I'm not going to waste your time, but don't turn around and waste mine either. That in my opinion, the rep that can project that again, it's going to be the rep that kind of separates themselves from the pack. Let's see. Let's see. All right. So here's some examples. We've got a quick thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thank you so much for a great transaction. Truly, truly enjoyed the process. So glad we could help bring this knowledge, and this equipment together to you to help your business. It's all about the customer. I mean, and look, we make money in these transactions, but if you're good at what you do and you bring the value through your knowledge, then you're helping the customer. It is a win-win, right? We make money on these transactions, but at the same time, customer comes out of the deal, with hopefully, if my negotiating skills are good, a good value on a good piece of equipment that's going to match their needs, and that sets us up to be able to go in. And in fact, one deal I recently closed, I said, "Hey, man, thank you so much. Please let me know if I can come out and do a lunch and learn with your team. When you're getting ready to deploy these assets, let me know. I will come, help you out. I'll help you out with submittals. Anything I can do to make your use of this asset, more valuable to your company. That's what I'm here for. That's what I get paid for. That's why we do what we do. That is why sales professionals bring value to what we do. All right. So I think we hit that about every way we could. Let me just make sure. Uh, yeah, I mean, key takeaway right here: the transaction start or the transaction is where business starts, not where it ends. I don't know where the quote came from, but beautiful, beautiful quote. And I might expand it to relationship. Because transactions lead to relationships, which lead to you know just account penetration, business growth. I mean, any of the good party terms that you hear in the boardroom meetings all the time. That's what boots in the ground can build to, right? All right. Okay. So we are going to take one more break, and then we're going to come in and talk about when to crack the whip, so to say, on fatherhood. So stick around. It's going to be a great topic. Thanks for listening so far. We'll be all right. Thanks for sticking around. Switching gears now to the home front. Kind of something every parent gets to that point with their uh, adolescent. I don't know. I don't know what at what age they start switching categories, but basically, my 4.5 year old Anna and I have just kind of gotten to the point to where, all right, it's time to start cracking the whip a little bit, right? I mean, you don't want to overcorrect, be too strict too early, or kill the fun. I mean, but at the same time, you want your kids to have these values where they put their clothes in the laundry hamper. They what's another thing we're working on? Put their plates in the sink after dinner. Just little things like that you see patterns starting to form. You see behaviors repeating, and boundaries being tested. And you think to yourself, hey, what do I need to do to make sure I'm providing society with a functioning member here, a well-adjusted, human being that's going to be ready to enter society when it's time. And it's you're damned if you do and damned if you don't at some point. I know Anna feels bad sometimes when we crack down. You ask them to do something 100 times, and you know, don't basically get ignored, but it doesn't happen. At the with the urgency you'd like to see, and you have to step up the pressure a little bit, and that's I think that's normal. But hey, I'd like to hear from you. Leave us a comment in the video section, whether you're reading this or seeing this on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Leave us a comment. I read them all. Try to respond when we can, or even here on YouTube. So leave the comments, and we'll start a conversation, because it's I think every parent goes through it, and I think every parent probably has that discussion with their co-parent, spouse, whatever your situation may be. It's really important to have everybody on the same page, and make sure you know we're sending a consistent message, and parenting with consistency in mind, right? It's I've caught myself recently, back to the laundry issue of being such a hurry to get them in bath and go, that I see him throw the clothes on the ground, not put them in the laundry hamper, and you know what, want to get them in bath, but it's important that a couple times I've had to stop myself. Okay, you know what, Ted, stop. Go get your stuff, throw it in the hamper. Even though that takes shaves precious minutes off our night routine, it's important to make sure these habits become rituals and become just kind of ingrained like that. So that's kind of where we're at there. And then yeah, that's it. Kids don't need perfect parents, they need consistent ones. There you go. All right, that's gonna segment us right into the golf improvement section. So something that has really, really helped my game, it has been segmenting what I'm working on, and whether that's through lessons, or just me getting in here on the sim and wanting to know numbers. Like right now, I'm having terrible problems with 125 yards. So basically, what I'm doing is trying to find various ways of getting to 125 yards. So basically, I can take my 52 and hit it absolutely as hard as I can, and get you know probably there, maybe even 130 at some points, depending on conditions and things like that. But that's going to be a higher ball flight that's going to stop, and if I catch it short, it's generated a lot of spin. It's going to pull back. Another option is I bought a 48 specifically for this distance, and a good consistent swing will get me that distance, right? 125. But I haven't really dialed the club in yet. So another way for me to do it is to step down a pitching wedge, go to about a 75%, choke it down a little bit. But I've noticed what that does is I get a lower ball flight, don't get any stop, and in fact get a little bit of roll. So I'll try to do the kind of bump and run, which I've never really been good at, because I never really practiced it. So now I'm switching back into to working on that. But the takeaway there is, if I'm having all this trouble with just a 125-yard shot, and we're talking about weeks and months, of working on just this 125-yard shot, you know, what about the guy that goes into his lesson and says, "Hey, I want to, work on my grip. I want to work on my stance." If you're working on all these different things, there's just no way to process it all. I mean, you've got too much going on in your swing thought. You just got too much going on in your head. I was watching a video the other day, and I thought I'd written down the name and how to get to it again, but obviously I can't find it, or something like that. But the way he did it was just incredible. We got some guests coming in to swing away. How about this? Hey, ladies, how are y'all today? Good deal. All right. Well, hey, we're going to wrap this up. We're at the last very line anyway. So let's see. Yeah, look, I'll just read this one word for word, because I really like it. Different conversations this week. The same ideas showed up everywhere. Standards in business: how you treat people after the deal. At home: what you allow and reinforce. On the course: how you approach improvement. The details matter, and the way you handle them, what separates the average from intentional. Take care of your people, your work, and your game. We'll see y'all in the clubhouse.